Hey all, today I'm going to go over my install of the Chamberlain MyQ Light Switch. This switch also works with Liftmaster and a couple of other brands that have the MyQ internet gateway. Basically, if you have a garage door opener with MyQ wireless that allows you to use an app on your phone to open and close your garage door, you can also use the same app to control these light switches. You can also use your garage door opener remote to control the light switches in addition to the garage door itself. And last but not least, you can also pair the light switch to your garage door opener. So for example, if you want your outside light to turn on and off when your garage door opener lights turn on and off, you can pair this switch up with your garage door opener, and it'll let your garage door opener control the lights, and you can also use it as a manual switch too. So for today, I'm not going to be pairing this up with my garage door. I'm just going to be using it as a remote switch and using the MyQ app to be able to control the lights. Alright, so we got the box open. In the box was the installation instructions for the light switch, the instructions on how to program the remote, as well as how to program the switch to the regular garage door opener clicker that came with your garage door opener, a baggie with some electrical wire nuts and a couple screws, the mini keychain remote, which is pretty much exactly the same as the clicker that came with your garage door. It's a 3-button remote. It's just in a keychain size. You can program this either to only control the light. You can program it as an additional remote for your garage door and then program one of these other buttons to control the light, etc. So kind of nifty to have. And then here's the switch itself. It looks similar to a regular, Leviton Decora type switch. It is actually a rocker switch. They don't tell you, but it looks like it's just one big button that you push, but it's not. When you push it, you can actually feel it pushes top and bottom for on and off. But it can be deceiving because if you try to push it right in the middle, it doesn't actually do anything, which I suspect could be the source from some people when they first install it, thinking it's just not working because they push the button and nothing happens. You actually have to push the top to turn it on, push the bottom to turn it off. Down here is just a rubber cover for the learn mode. There's a little learn switch inside there, and an LED light that blinks and tells you if it's working or not. So there's the actual learn button, the white one, and then that black space, there's a green LED light in there that tells you what's going on with the switch. Other than that, you got the wiring on the back. You've got red, green, black, and yellow wires. According to the instructions, the red is for the load. The load is basically the thing that you're trying to turn on and off. In my case, it's a couple floodlights that are in my backyard. So that red wire should be connected to the wire that goes to the floodlights in my case. The black wire is for the line, which is basically just the wire that goes back to your circuit panel. That's the line that the power actually comes over. Green is your ground wire. That'll usually get attached to the bare copper colored wire that's inside the box. The yellow is actually not an electrical wire at all. This is the antenna that picks up the signal when you push one of the clickers, etc. So that yellow wire is not actually going to get connected to anything. The instructions actually suggest that you stick it in any kind of gap you have between the electrical box and the drywall or the wall itself, so that it kind of hangs down inside the wall. So we'll be doing that. So that's what we've got there. For my purposes, I'm going to be using this to replace a switch that's kind of a pain to get to. I've got a set of floodlights in my backyard, and in order to turn them on, I have to walk halfway across my house into my utility room to a light switch that's conveniently for this video next to my electrical panel, with the intention that I can actually use the MyQ app that I use for my garage door opener to turn those lights on and off. And I'm actually going to take this mini keychain remote that it came with. I'm going to take the little ring off because I'm not going to put on keys. I'm going to get a piece of Velcro And I'm going to stick it on the wall next to my back door, and I'm going to use it just as a regular light switch to turn those lights on and off. So for my purposes, this actually has nothing to do with my garage door opener today. I already installed another one of these to control some extra lights that are inside my garage. I wanted them to come on with the garage door opener lights, and it worked beautifully. So today I'm going to do this one. Alright, so here we are at the light switch. This one is inside my utility room, which again is a pain to get to in order to turn on the lights that are in my backyard. But on with the show. For this install, we should only need 2 screwdrivers. One being a regular flathead screwdriver to take off the cover, and sometimes the screws on the light switches themselves might be flathead. A Phillips head screwdriver for those types of screws. I find it handy to have a basic electric detector. All this thing does is tell you if there's electricity going through a wire that you're about to touch or not. And some wire nuts. I just bought these at regular home improvement store. The reason I bought these is because they're a bit smaller than the generic ones that come with a lot of these lights. And considering that that light switch is pretty beefy, again, it sticks out pretty far on the back compared to a normal light switch. If it's tight inside the box, I might need all the room I can get, so having some smaller wire nuts might make my life easier. And last but not least, a pair of needle nose pliers, mostly because inside this circle is a little cutter, and you can use that to cut any of the wires that are too long and need to be adjusted. Might not need those, but as I found in life, having the right tool when you need it can make a job 10 times easier. Alright, so let's go ahead and take off this cover. Now it's worth noting that the switch does not come with one of these wall plates. I guess their thinking is that you're likely going to be replacing an existing switch, but for example, if you have a toggle switch light and you're changing it out for this switch, you're going to need to replace the wall plate with one that's made for the Decora type switches. They're not expensive. You can probably get one for less than $1. But if you don't know you need it and you discover it when you go to do the install, it can be annoying. Alright, so there's the inside where the switches are, and this is where having the electricity sensor is going to make our lives easier, because what I'm going to do is, right now I have not turned off the electricity to this outlet. I am absolutely going to. I know some people don't mind working on electrical switches, etc. with the power on, but I do. It's just not safe. Getting electrocuted is never fun for me. Alright, so I've got the switch out of the box and the wires are still attached. You can see in this case the colors of the wires aren't going to help us much, because you've got 2 black wires and a copper wire. The copper wire is almost always your ground wire. It should not be carrying electricity. If it is, then something's wrong and you should call an electrician. In this case, there's probably not much to label here because they're both black. But what we can do is unscrew these screws on the side that are holding the wires in, and unscrew the other one, and now let us get the wires off of the switch. Sometimes you have to unscrew them more than others. Usually these wires will be bent into a hook shape so that they don't come off the switch easily. That's good. It's a safety feature. You don't want that wire, if the screw comes loose over the years or something else, you don't want that wire slipping out on its own. But you might have to bend the wire to get it to come off cleanly. And that's okay, because you can bend it back when it's time to put it on the other switch. So I just bend that one to get it out of the way. Unscrew that a little bit more. You can unscrew these all the way out. I just prefer not to if I don't have to. Here's the ground wire. We unscrew that. There we go. Take it right off. And at this point, you know, I do have the power turned off to these wires. Obviously, I'm touching them and playing with them. I'm not a fan of getting electrocuted. And I don't suggest anybody else do it either. So now what I'm going to do, because the MyQ Light Switch says that the red wire is supposed to go to the load, in this case the floodlights outside, and the black wire goes to the line, which is the line that the power wire, it's the wire that the power comes from the circuit breaker panel on. Since I only have two black wires here and I have no idea which one goes to the lights versus which one goes to the floodlights outside, that's where I can use my electric tester. So what I'll do is, since these wires aren't touching anything, I shouldn't be shorting anything out, I'll go ahead and turn on the power here at the breaker, which is conveniently right next to where I'm working. And I use my electric tester, turn it on, let it start up, and then the electric tester, just putting it near the wire, will tell you if there's electricity. So this wire has pretty much no electricity in it. This one is hot. So this is my line wire. That's the wire that goes back to the circuit breaker. And this one is my load, which is the wire that goes up to my floodlights that I'm going to be powering. So I'll just make a note of that. This way, when I connect it, I know which one is which. Alright, so I've gone ahead and turned the power back off at the panel. And now we're ready to go ahead and connect up the MyQ light switch. Again, I like to double and triple check before I touch anything. There's my electric tester. Ground is clean. The line is clean. The load is clean. Alright. So I'll turn that off. I've got my handy dandy wire nuts, which are used to connect the wires together. So now what I'll do is straighten out this wire, because instead of hooking it up under a screw on a traditional light switch, the MyQ light switch just uses standard wires that we're going to braid together. Now this is the bit that I was talking about needing to be able to snip these wires. This exposed copper is pretty long, probably a lot longer than the wire that I'm going to be connecting. Yeah, it's probably a good 1/4 inch longer. So rather than having way too much wire there or having to use an oversized wire nut, I am choosing to just use my cutting part of the needle nose pliers to snip off the extra. And that'll make life a lot easier. So now we will go ahead and connect up our black wire, which is for the load. I'm sorry, which is for the line. These are electrical terms. I didn't make them up. That's just what the instructions say. So your line is the wire that has electricity going through it from the circuit breaker panel. Your load wire is the wire that goes to the light that you want to send the electricity to. So in this case, all I'm doing is taking the two wires, putting them together the wire that comes from the switch is actually a whole bunch of little wires. You probably can't see it very well. It's a whole bunch of little wires together, and so usually what I'll do is straighten them out, twist them a little bit so that they stay together. Take the wire from the house, which is one thick wire instead of a whole bunch of little ones. Let me just first straighten it out to make my life easier. And again, this one is, the exposed part is much longer than I need, so I'm going to go ahead and clip it to keep life simple for me. So all I'll do is take the switch wire, line up the plastic insulation next to the insulation on the house wire, which tells me exactly how much longer the house wire is. Slip my needle nose pliers over it and clip off the extra. In this case, I have plenty of wire from the house, so even if I made a mistake and cut it too short, I can just strip off some of that extra black insulation and make it longer again. Obviously, if you're dealing with a short wire coming out of the box, be careful. Measure twice, cut once. So what I'll do is take the wire from the switch, put it up next to the wire from the wall, and I'll just twist them together, wrapping the wire from the switch around the wire from the wall so that they're in really good contact with each other. Then I'll take one of my wire nuts, put it right over it till it stops, then screw it on and just keep on twisting until it is hand tight. You don't want to go nuts and over tight. I've broken these things before. Not that easy to do, but you can. And then give it a little tug. Make sure that the wire isn't going to slip out. Make sure everything is connected in there really well. And that's it. The next wire we have is our ground wire. That's the green wire. And this came out of the box with the wires kind of frizzy. So I'm just straightening them out, and I'll twist them a couple times to make sure it's nice and straight and clean. Put that right up next to the bare copper wire, which is the ground wire from my house. Do the same thing I did before, just kind of twist it around. Twist the wire from the switch around the ground wire from the house so that they're in good contact. Take another wire nut, and again, the light comes with wire nuts. They're orange ones, but they're much bigger than these, and I don't think we need them. So I'll just twist this one on and make sure it keeps going until it's nice and firm and hand tight. It is. Give everything a tug, nothing's coming out. So we're done with the wiring. This yellow wire again is the antenna wire. This is the one that when you push the clicker or send the signal from your smartphone is actually going to receive and send the signals. And what the instructions tell you to do is look for a gap like I have here between the electrical box and the drywall, and they tell you just to stick the wire right between them and inside the wall. We'll see if that's actually going to work. Right now it feels like it's going somewhere, but I want to make sure it's not just getting bunched up next to it. There we go. It's actually going in nicely. So that's all you got to do with that. And they tell you to try to keep that wire straight so that it's as long as possible inside the wall, because the longer the antenna is not curled up, the better it's going to be receiving the signal. So that's it. So now what they tell you to do is turn it on and watch to see if the LED light under this Chamberlain logo on the cover starts flashing. Apparently this thing either has a capacitor or a battery in it, and when you first turn it on, it needs to charge. They say it may take up to 10 minutes for it to charge up, and the switch may not work at all during those 10 minutes. It's not broken, it's not defective. What they tell you is when you turn it on, the green LED inside of here will start flashing, and it'll continue to flash while it's charging. Once it stops flashing, that means it's fully charged and it should be working. So now, since the electrical panel is right here next to me and it's convenient for me to test, I'll turn on the panel and we'll find out if I wired it correctly. If I did, that light should blink. If I didn't, I'm guessing it won't. I'm not bothering to put it back in the wall yet because I want to make sure it's working. There you go. That LED is blinking green. So now we leave it alone. According to the instructions, if after 10 minutes that LED hasn't stopped blinking, it could mean that there's a problem with the wiring or the voltage that was done. It could also mean that you did something wrong with the ground wire. According to these directions, this switch must have a ground wire. A lot of light switches will say you should have one, but they'll still work just fine without one. In the case of these switches, they actually use the ground wire, and if you don't have one, the switch will not operate. I've seen people online say that the switch would turn on but wouldn't turn back off, or wouldn't turn on in the first place, and just doesn't work. And that could be the problem. So if you don't have a ground wire inside your electrical box, this switch isn't going to work right, unless you are able to get it hooked up to a ground. So I'm going to go ahead and install this back in the wall and close it up, and we'll come back and go on to the next steps. Alright, so we closed everything up, turned the power back on. The LED light here under the Chamberlain cover was blinking green. Left it alone for 5 or 10 minutes. And when I came back to check on it, the light has stopped blinking, which means we should be good to go. I did test the light switch, turned it on and off a couple times, and it does appear to be turning my lights on and off, so we're in good shape there. Now we're ready to program the handy dandy mini remote that came with the switch. So according to the directions, to go into programming mode, take a paper clip and just, unwind one end of it. On the right side of the remote there's a tiny hole, and they say stick the safety pin in there or a paper clip and push it until the LED comes on, which it came on, but I don't know if it's supposed to stay on. Alright, we'll assume it's in programming mode. Once it does that, the instructions are push and hold that button, and then push the learn button on the switch, and the light will turn on and off to tell you that it's good. Obviously the problem here is we're inside and the light's outside. I heard the switch click, which to me says it probably was turning the light on and off, but let's run outside real quick and see if it actually worked. Alright, so time for the moment of truth. There's my floodlights out there. Here's my handy dandy remote, and let's give her a whirl. Hey, they turned on. Will they turn off? Yeah, buddy. Alright, so there you go. Alright, working like a champ. Sweet. Next up, let's go ahead and program the MyQ app on the phone. Alright, so I've got my MyQ app open. I had programmed it for my garage previously. I went ahead and logged into it, and here we go. This is an iPhone, by the way. I don't know if the Android app looks any different, but here it is. How we add the switch is we go ahead and we click the plus on the top right. We click add device to home. I named this location home. So we click add device, and then it asks us if we want to add a garage door opener or a remote light. Go ahead and pick remote light. And it says walk up to your remote light and locate its learn button. Did that, so we click next. Now press and release the learn button on your remote light, and it's waiting for it. So I'll go ahead and push the learn button on the light right there, and we'll see what it does. There you go. It says success. So apparently I didn't hit it well the first time. It is a small button. If you're worried about it, you can use a paper clip or something to push it. So now it asks you to name your new device. It just comes up and saying light. That's not very descriptive for me, so I'm gonna call mine backyard floods, and go ahead and save it. Now it says backyard floods. Now we should be able to close up the little rubber cover for the learn button. There we go, and we should be done in my utility room. So let's go outside and test it out one last time. Alright, so here we are back in the backyard, and there's my MyQ app up and ready to go. There's the soffit lights, which are currently off. Let's go ahead and tap the button and say, hey, we have light. Sweet. Go ahead and turn it back off, and they're off. Dun dun dun. Alright, so it works like a champ. I can't complain, it's doing exactly what I wanted it to. The little mini remote that it came with works. The phone app works, and the phone will also tell you how long the light's been on or off, if that would be helpful for you. Alright, hope this has been helpful, and see you out there.